Welcome back to another episode of the Lender Podcast. As always, I'm Bryce Matheson, and today we are greeted with Mr. Logan Richetti. Logan, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I typically let the guest introduce themselves, but this time I'm going to do it for you because Logan's a good buddy of mine. I know Logan pretty well, and I don't know if he'll do as good of a job introducing himself as I can. So Logan is a mastermind genius. He has about 26 irons in the fire. And frankly, I don't know how he does it all because he's a husband. He's a father to 4 kids. Is that right? 4 now?
Yeah, 4
kids. You've got a real estate brokerage. You've got a private lending company. You've got LendFam, LendSafe, LendDocs, LendElite. I'm probably LendFam Elite. I'm probably missing all of them, but frankly, dude, I don't know how. I don't know how you do everything you do. And on top of that, I see you every day. You're in the gym, you're lifting weights, you're getting swole, and Logan's just an all around great dude. So I'm very excited for this episode.
Well, I appreciate that. My main claim to fame is I have a real estate brokerage. That's the baseline, the foundation of my real estate career. I've been doing investments for 15 years, and about 10 years ago this July, we opened a real estate brokerage and put a title company with that. And I have 9 or 10 LLC partnerships with other investors that we buy and hold or buy and flip houses. The lending company, Finley Capital, originated about early 2021. Just by chance, I had an opportunity to do a private money loan as the lender. And I took the opportunity, I took a risk, and I had some capital finally saved up from my own, efforts over the years. I made that loan. It worked out really well. I made another loan. It worked out really well. And next thing you know, I put a business behind the lending idea. So that's how Finley Capital. Finley's my firstborn daughter. I named it after her. And that's how that entity started. And then from there, obviously, we can talk about the progression into some of these other concepts that we've been putting on top of Finley Capital in order to try to grow and scale it sustainably. And that's what keeps me busy. But, I'm pretty organized with spreadsheets. I don't sleep a lot. I put my daughters and my family first. That's always been my priority. But, like today, I started the workday at 10:45 today because I took my daughter to the mall to go play at the playground for a few hours. And I wanted to be present with the girls before I get into work. And that costs me some productivity sometimes, but I don't care because that's
what it's all about.
Yeah. You're in this phase of life where you got the little kiddos and you don't get that back. So I work hard, but I definitely understand. I'm at a point in my life where I'm very clear on what my priorities are. And so I get everything done, but it just starts with kids, then work, then whatever's left for sleep, or, there's a 6-foot-old in the house. So there's not a lot of sleep going on right now, but I'm having
I was going to say, I see you're always supposed to get 2 a.m., up with the kiddo. And then, you're up again at 6 at the gym. I'm just like, wow, I don't know if I could operate on 4 hours of sleep, but somehow you managed to do that. And I completely forgot about the title company. That was a new one for me too when we saw each other a week or two ago. So you've got so many things cooking, and I want to talk about all of that, assuming we have time. But for all the newbies who are listening that have not met you before, break down all the private lending related stuff and the umbrella that everything is under, and kind of what your goal is, and all of that, as a whole, because it's really interesting. I love what you're doing. I think it's brilliant, frankly. So dive into that and explain the differences.
Well, like I said, Finley Capital I organized it in early 2021. And at the time I had a vision of building a big operation with a big staff. And I grew that up to about 5 full-time paid staff members. And so I had an underwriter, a processor, a social media person, and a controller, all on staff being paid salary by Finley Capital to help me build the infrastructure needed to grow to my ultimate vision, which is $120 million in balance sheet value, which is, a pretty big balance sheet of loans at any given time. In order to originate and then underwrite and sustain that many loans, you need a team or a staff behind you to help facilitate that. So I made some extensive investments in the infrastructure and the overhead. What I realized doing that, I also, built a 506B fund as part of that progression as well, trying to raise capital in a more efficient and sustainable way. But what I realized pretty quickly was that it's just, if you have that much overhead, $25,000, $30,000 a month in payroll, you have to do so much loan volume just to break even on your overhead. It can cause you to change your underwriting criteria from how do I make the most conservative loans possible to how do I make loans to pay payroll.
Yep. And so, how do I pay the bills?
Yeah. And that's not, when you're making a private lending underwriting decision, you have to be very conservative, and the decision needs to be focused primarily on mitigating as much of the risk as possible when you structure that deal, as opposed to any kind of incentive to have to put more loan volume out to hit your overhead goals. So after learning a few lessons, we did one or two 250 loans that way, and did some great loans and had a couple problem loans, partly because we made some loan decisions that we might not have made if we didn't have that overhead consideration. I wound it down. I dismantled some of the payroll. I wound down the portfolio we were up to 9 million, I think, at the peak. Rolled it down to about 3 million and gave some investor capital back. Let some payroll staff go that weren't getting the job done or weren't a good fit or whatever. And then I took a look at the industry, at the business, and I said, do I want to be in this lending business or not? If I do, then I need to do it the right way with very low overhead and a much more conservative loan structure philosophy. Around about that time, this is about a year and a half ago, I linked up with Kevin Marshall, my partner now. He and I have decided to link up as partners in Finley Capital and then re-engineer it and build it back up as a very conservative private money lending operation with very low overhead and very efficient operations. So we've done that. He's taken over all of the operations aspects of our company. And of course, he plugged in Lender as his main initiative. He took Lender, he grabbed it by the throat, and he jammed it into our operation, despite my objections, because I didn't want to change anything again. He said, Logan, we have to have this software. This software is game-changing in terms of loan origination, loan underwriting and processing, and then servicing as well. So I said, look, we're partners now. You're in charge of operations now. If you think it's the right move us into there. So, prior to that, we were using Google Sheets and HubSpot in conjunction with each other to try to kind of piecemeal the operations together. We didn't have a really good loan processing and doc collection system. It was all through a Google Sheet with manual uploads. So our processing team was taking these documents, taking these items manually through email, downloading them, uploading them, recoding them, linking them, sharing them. It was just a pain in the neck. So when we implemented Lender, what we did instead was we created this system called LendSafe, which is effectively loan underwriting for private money lenders. And we charge a processing fee to the borrowers at closing. That processing fee goes to pay the lender team or the LendSafe team. And that's what allowed us to eliminate some of that overhead with the payroll infrastructure. In other words, we basically created a third-party service provider, and then we used it for ourselves. And now that third-party service provider, LendSafe, that concept, if you will, is being partnered with other private money lenders who don't want to do their own underwriting and they don't want to do their own processing. And we're implementing Lender in that process, which is cool. But anyway, so Kevin brought in Lender, and now all of our borrowers, once they sign their term sheet and they start the processing and the underwriting of the file, LendSafe reaches out with an introduction, says, here's your portal to Lender. Please upload the following 8 documents, whatever it is. And they do that now. And every time they do that, we get an email notification of what's going on. And then the LendSafe team for Finley Capital is able to underwrite and process that deal all through Lender, which is cool. What's also cool, as you know, because you wrote the thing, is the capital partners that we have can log into Lender and they can see the deals. They could see the details of the file if they want, underwrite the file that way. And then, of course, once we get that loan through the underwriting process to funding and servicing, it has a servicing component now that we can see all of the investor loans, the investor interest rates, the loan volume, the maturity dates. We get beautiful notifications about things like expiring insurance or there hasn't been a draw request in 30 days and all these different automations. It's made us a lot more efficient in our portfolio management, which has allowed us to scale back up to $10 million with no paid staff except for one part-time controller, which is great. And then, of course, we have the LendSafe third party that we provide those services to ourselves as needed on an a la carte basis. So basically, the long story short, by partnering up with a lender and rebuilding our model, we've been able to become very efficient and effective as a lending company and very profitable from a top line of revenue standpoint to a bottom line net income. And that has us in a position where now we can go out and raise more capital and be more aggressive on the origination side as a result of putting this infrastructure together. So thanks, Bryce, and thanks, Kevin, for making that happen.
I appreciate the kind words. The goal is of the episode is not to not to fish for compliments. I'm supposed to be talking you up, but we'll take it. That's very kind of you. But I want to talk more deeply about, because I think the offer is incredible. In fact, this is something that you do very, very well that I have always struggled with, and I actually want to dive into that. Is you have, in my opinion, you have an incredible offer, and I assume this comes from the Hormozi $100 million offers book, just creating an offer that is so impeccably good is just stupid to say no to. And one thing that you mentioned to me once was you said a new private lender comes on, they start to work with us. They don't really know what they're doing. They don't have a lot of capital. We're going to give them $1 million to start, which in my mind is just like, it blew my mind when you said that, because no shit, of course, that's an incredible offer. Who would ever say no to that? So first off, I want to know how you came up with crafting that offer, because I have read that book 7 times. I have tried to craft an offer so good that you can't say no to it. And B, I'm curious what other things beneath that people gain access to, because I know it's not just here's $1 million that you can lend on. There's a lot of other services that you guys provide.
Well, as you know, I live in Midland, Michigan. We have 50,000 people in our market. So we don't have a lot of deal flow locally. And to grow from, $1 or $2 million portfolio to a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, $100 million portfolio, there was no other way to do that other than to figure out a partnership concept with other private money lenders. It's just like the real estate brokerage. We have 50 agents, and all 50 of those agents, they go out, they make sales, they generate buyer and seller sales, and then our infrastructure, our team supports that growth and development through a brokerage style. So I wanted to duplicate that model in private money lending. So I had to figure out a way to entice other private money lenders, either new or existing, to want to work with Finley Capital. So I needed to figure out a way to incentivize them. The first iteration of that, and if you listen closely to Alex Hormozy, you'll know that he'll tell you you have to try a bunch of different offers till you find the right one. So we did that, and we tried several different ways. The first concept that we came up with was what we called regional associate partnerships. And the idea was effectively loan originator partners, where we paid them a commission if they brought us a deal. So we went out and we made a list of 15 or 20 names that we thought would be good fits, mostly, people who led their local real estate investor association groups, or talented operators that we know, mortgage brokers, real estate agents, anybody in the business that I thought could generate deal flow for us. And we outbound to them. We said, hey, how would you like to be an affiliate with Finley Capital, originate deals for us? We'll pay you commissions if they close. Some of them were interested, but what we found quite, predictably was they didn't have a lot of skin in the game. And we started getting stuff where they're throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks, as opposed to trying to create loan opportunities that were conservative and safe for us.
Right.
And so incentives are everything. And so after doing that for a couple of months, we realized, hey, we might get a couple deals here and there, but this isn't going to grow and scale the way we want it to, because we're just getting basically broker origination loans that nobody else wants to do anything with, and they're throwing the junk at us. So I started thinking, how do I find, or at least attract, new and aspiring private money lenders towards us to get some help in a way that we could both benefit? And that's how the Lend Fam concept was created. So we created this website called lendprivate.us, and we created an offer. And to answer your question, the way that we created this offer was, I have a little Facebook group called Powered by Private on Facebook. And one day I made a post, and I was looking at my available capital. And this happens all the time. You're a lender. I have $1 million sitting in cash, and I got, $200,000 in pending loans. And I'm just looking at myself thinking, there's nothing that I can do to generate $800,000 in loan volume overnight. So I'm going to have to sit on this capital, pay interest on it, and wait for new loans to come in. So I went on the group and I made a post, and I said, I have $1 million available. If you would like to learn how to lend private capital, let me know, and I will give you $1 million to lend. And I just posted it and forgot about it, went out back to the carpet, played with the kids. Next thing you know, I look at my phone and I'm getting hit up left and right. Ding, 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 ding. Interested. Tell me more. So I said, wow, okay, there's something here. And the truth of the matter is, if you're a new or aspiring private money lender, most of the time, not always, your constraint is raising capital. It's just difficult to raise capital, generally speaking, asking friends and family to invest in money in your business. But also, if you don't have a lot of track record yet, it's almost impossible to go to your dentist and say, hey, how'd you like to invest $250,000 with my lending company? I've done 0 loans, right? So it's hard to get started. And so the idea, the concept was, hey, how about we attract, train, equip, and then mentor new private money lenders to get into the business, and then provide them with some capital to start, so that they can get a track record with their friends and their family to hopefully grow their own brand. And then as a result of that relationship, we, as the Finley Capital leads capital source, can get some of our capital out. In other words, we're getting deal flow from the partnership, because the originators, the team members out there, are building their own brands, originating deals. We're underwriting them together. We're lending on them together, so that he or she has a good, vested interest in that loan being solid. And then we get some capital out. in addition to that, we have some third-party services that we can install into these lending companies like LendSafe, LendDocs, and LendBooks, which are effectively third-party underwriting, third-party loan document preparation and title review, and then servicing. In other words, those services can be plugged into these private money lender partners' operations so that they don't have to invest in the overhead required to build them on their own, like I did with $25,000, $30,000 a month between a processor, an underwriter, a controller, a loan servicing software, which can be expensive, all those different things, loan docs, all that stuff. So the idea became, hey, how do we give out some tools and some support and some training to new and aspiring lenders that want to build lending companies? They just don't have a lot of capital or experience yet, which is another thing you need when you start, because I've done 200, 300, 350 loans now. I learned a lot along the way. And when you're starting out, there's so many things that you don't know, like how to properly code your insurance assignments and all this different stuff. So we put together a full turnkey system where the new and the inspiring lenders can plug it in. We will mentor and support them, and then we will provide these services for them. But the Grand Slam offer component is that we would fund your first deal to get you off the ground, and then we have a program that if it's a good fit and everything, we could fund more of your deals over time. And so that's where we are today is we're building this Lend Fam, as we call it. And we put this, like I said, we put this website together called lendprivate.us. There's a big sales letter at the top. There's a list of all the services and the benefits you get. It's a membership style. I don't want to say call it a coaching program, but it's more of a community with a couple of Lend coaches, as we call it, that really mentor and help. So what happens is we have this group lead. We have, like, right after this, we're going to do a Zoom call every Wednesday. We have a WhatsApp group chat. All the members of the group go into that group chat. If they have a loan question, or if they're working a lead, or if they're working a capital investor lead, myself or Kevin or somebody on the team hops on Zoom, goes over the deal, helps them structure the deal, hops on with borrowers or capital partners if necessary, and helps present and negotiate the deals, structure the deals. And then once they get, signed and ready to go, we bring in LendSafe, LendDocs, and LendBooks, and then we're splitting the revenue on those deals together. So the new LendFam members are able to get their lending companies off the ground without any capital and without a lot of experience and without any overhead as a result of the way we've structured this. So it is, like you said, it's kind of a grand slam offer that benefits both parties. These people, these guys and gals, are learning how to build their lending company, building their brand. They know they have a little bit of capital behind their brand, so they can actually go out and be aggressive looking for borrowers and quoting deals. And then, of course, on the back end now, we're providing the services, and we're getting some capital out, and we're building relationships that's going to help us grow from $1 million, $2 million a month in loan volume, ideally up to $10, $20 million a month over time.
It's genius. It's genius. I was just thinking about too. So, think in the context of a brand new flipper who has never flipped a house before. More often than not, a lot of people are like, okay, do I need to go buy this $10,000 course? Do I need to, get all this training and do all these things? And I'm not saying don't educate yourself. Of course, please do that. But a lot of people are saying, should I buy this expensive course? My natural inclination is don't buy the course, use that 10 grand and use it as your quote unquote tuition to kind of learn and get your first deal done. Essentially, that's what people are doing under LendFam, is that rather than buying this insane, egregious course, like if you had a flipper who went in and said, hey, I'm going to partner with you, do this deal together, this first one, you are going to learn so much that will be so advantageous, and you mitigate your risk because I've done it 250, 350 times. I can tell you what to do and what not to do. I can spot problems a mile away. And how is that not the most valuable thing? Like, you get all of the education without the cost of the education, and you make money on the deal. It's brilliant. It truly is. And the other thing I was thinking is, I just lost my train of thought.
Well, I got one. So the beauty, I agree with you. I totally agree. And when we get a new real estate agent in the brokerage, I always throw them a few leads right out of the gate, because it's so hard to get leads. And I try to help them get a couple of reps, because I know how important it is to get reps. And when Kevin started his lending company, when we met remotely for a couple of months and we became friends, I actually helped him fund his first deal because he was a friend. That's why I did it. But at the time, I didn't realize how beneficial that would be for Kevin just to get his first rep and see what it looks like to get a signed term sheet, to underwrite a file, to coordinate with an attorney, to coordinate with the title company, to collect property insurance, to schedule the closing date, to review the closing statement, to set up a loan in a lending software, to managing draws, to collecting payments, to delivering capital investor distributions, to doing a loan repayment, a loan extension, whatever, releasing a lien after it repays. So Kevin was able to go through the entire loan life cycle, and he earned revenue along the way, which is, like you said, doing this for free would be a massive win for a borrower, but
Sure.
for a lender, but they're actually getting paid. So for example, on a $100,000 loan with a 3% origination, and let's just say a 12% note rate and a 10% assignment rate, okay, over the course of 12 months, that's $3,000 in origination and $2,000 in servicing spread, okay, plus say 5 draws at $200 a draw, it's another $1,000. So there's $6,000 in revenue coming in on that loan over the course of 12 months that we're splitting 50-50 in that scenario. So the borrower or the lender who finds the deal is going to make $3,000 on that opportunity just to learn how to do it, which is going to cover all their overhead for the year. Right. And we get an extra, couple thousand for putting the deal together and providing the capital and doing the mentorship at scale. That's a win-win for everybody. And so I love the idea of helping to mentor and train and hold the hand of and have aligning interests with these new and aspiring lenders in the Lend Fam. So it's been fun so far, and we're just getting started.
I remember what I was going to say too. So I have a personal belief that 90% of the people out there are probably not cut out for entrepreneurship. Really, truly. Like, I think a lot of people, honestly, you might be better off going and working a W-2 job, raising your income. I think for most people, entrepreneurship is not the way, simply because it is so difficult. But one thing that you say and you talk about on your podcast frequently, and by the way, if you have not checked out the Finley Capital podcast, please do so. It's excellent. You talk a lot about how you can do 1 or 2 deals a month and you generate 50 grand a year in extra additional income. And the thing is, I don't think people necessarily, I take that back. I think people would love to have Lambo money and yacht money and whatever, like the pie in the sky. That's great. Obviously, I don't think that's realistic, but if you're making an additional $3,000 to $4,000 per month, that for a lot of people is life-changing. That gives you the additional breathing room that you need just to make ends meet. It's incredible. And so, like I said, going back to your podcast, you speak frequently about you can do 1 or 2 deals a month. We'll provide you the capital. You do nothing. We do everything. We'll hold your hand. We'll walk through it. We'll help you mitigate the risk. And then you make 50 grand additional per year. Like, that is incredible. It again comes back to the brilliant offer. It's genius.
Well, if I could go back and look at anything that I'm proud of over the last 15 years of small business entrepreneurship, and you're right, it's just not for everybody. You got to be a little bit nutso and crazy to try to build whole businesses and hold a bunch of plates in the air and all that. But what I love about this concept is exactly what you just mentioned. You can help other people make additional marginal revenue for their family. That's what gets me excited. I don't think we have anybody in the Lend Fam who's doing lending full time. It's a side hustle. It's an additional revenue stream. It's an additional way to leverage your network and your database. It certainly can be a full-time gig. And as you look at the pro forma numbers, they go off the charts quickly. You can make more money than a doctor within a couple of years of focus, but you don't have to for it to be successful. You could do it, like you said, a couple loans a month and bring in an extra $50,000 or $100,000 for your family. Now, depending on how that strikes you, $50,000 or $1,000 could be not a lot of money to you, or it can be life-changing money. And for most people, that's significant marginal revenue. Just think about if you picked up an extra $50,000 or $60,000 a year, and you kept your stable, predictable W-2 or whatever other small business you have, whatever else you're doing that pays your bills and keeps you safe. This additional revenue stream can pay off your student loan, can pay off your car, can pay off your house, can pay off all these credit cards or medical bills, all the other things that you have. And then after a while, like it happened to me, I was able to start getting ahead financially and saving some liquidity. And after putting in the retirement money away and this stuff for the kids and all that, there's some money left. And guess what? Now you become a capital investor. Yep. Now you get to invest your own capital into your deals. And as you know, that compounds your returns exponentially, because now you're getting that return as the capital partner, in addition to the lending revenue sources like the origination, the servicing, and the draws and all that other stuff. So anybody listening who's interested in becoming a lender or wants to lend some private capital to grow additional revenue streams inside of your real estate portfolio, or just even if you're not even in the business, this is a great way to get started. And there are some good training programs out there, not a lot. You and I are in the best one, But the truth of the matter is there's not a lot of training and mentorship for this particular niche, lending private money. There's just not a lot out there. So I get that. And I want to be somebody who can help you to just learn the business. That's why we put there's 6 video modules about how to lend private capital on the lendprivate.us website. There's a private money handbook, lender edition, which is a comprehensive 30-page PDF guide that teaches you the basics of how to do this. And so we want to give that away. And like you said, the Hormozy style, just give it away, help them learn. And then hopefully people who watch and listen to that content say, yeah, this makes sense. I want to do this more. Let me reach out to Logan and the team and see if we can get involved together as a partnership and take this thing to the moon and go get them.
Well, the other thing that I was thinking with that is, if anybody who's listening, if you're like, I'm just looking for, like Logan said, a side hustle, think about all the other side hustles that are out there. There's people talking about, drop shipping or Amazon FBA or whatever. And like, if you talk to someone who's not a guru, who's not trying to sell you a course, if you're really just like, okay, I'm going to go to Alibaba and I'm going to find a cheap, shitty thing, and then I'm going to import it, and then I'm going to sell it on Amazon. You don't realize the amount of effort that takes. A, there's a ton of risk because you have to front the inventory. B, you have to import this. C, you have to learn marketing and sales and do all these things. And then you have to house all this crap. Then you have to sell it. It's just like, and it's all low margin anyway. Whereas you're talking about this model with Logan, I can tell you right now how to make an additional $50,000 a year. What you're going to do is you're going to go to Facebook or wherever people are at, and you said, hey, I am a private lender. We fund private real estate deals. And then people come to you and say, hey, I have a deal that has, a lot of potential upside. And you say, okay, what are the numbers? Let's say it's $100,000 loan on a $150,000 property. Then you bring that to Logan and he does all the work for you. He will walk you through step by step by step by step. And then, like he said, you don't have to have all the infrastructure. You don't have to have the CPA. You don't have to have the underwriting team. You don't have to have the software, because like you said, you don't have to have $30,000 a month in overhead because he does it for you. It's just brilliant. So as far as a side hustle goes, as opposed to all these other things you could do, and we're just going in circles now, but 1 to 2 deals a month, and it could be life-changing for your family. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the other things that we do is everybody who's in the group, we give them a custom loan application form. So they can embed that into a website, or they can just make it into a Bitly link. They can send it to the borrower. The borrower fills it out. They get an email notification, and then I get copied on it. So the team member and I hop on a Zoom or a call right away. We go over it and we quote it out right away. We send it out. Usually I make it or they make it, depending on the strategy. And then we send it out and negotiate it, which is cool. But the other avenue that this is interesting for is also people with their own liquidity, their own capital available to lend, but they don't know how to do it. And I'll give you an example. Let's just say you're a doctor, a dentist, or whatever, an accountant, attorney, whatever, or you're just retired and whatever, and you have a couple $100,000 available to lend, or just available to invest in general. You're already in stocks, you're already in bonds, you're already in mutual funds, you bought your Bitcoin, you bought your other stuff, but you're interested in this concept of alternative investments, private lending. And let's just say you have a son-in-law who's flipping houses down the road, and you would love to lend money to him or her, but you don't know how to secure it safely. You don't know how to structure it safely. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I've seen more than anything is people lending private capital the wrong way, not securing it properly, not holding back repair funds in escrow, not collecting points and interest and fees and setting it all up the right way. But I know a lot of people who would lend their own private capital to their own friends and their family if they knew how to do it safely. And we help people like that as well, because we can just come in and help them structure the deals. They keep the points, they keep the interest, they keep that all the other stuff. We just bring in our services to help them do it the right way. We have a few people in the group right now that have been attracted to the group simply for that purpose. They don't want to build lending operations per se, but they might have $1 million to lend, and they know they can make 10, 11, 12% on that money if they lend it out the right way to their trusted local investors that they already know or that they can go and find. They just don't want to spend a year or two learning how to put it all together the right way. So if that sounds like you too, you can reach out to us and we'll help you set it up and get your money out safely, which after you can get $1 million out in a couple of months with 5 200K loans or 10 100K loans or 2 500K loans. It doesn't take a lot of work to get $1 million out on the street deployed safely. You just got to make sure that you're doing it the right way and that you're not going to have a problem because of the way you deployed it incorrectly. So we can help with that too.
There are a lot of listeners on the podcast that obviously are interested in this concept of passive income. And naturally, when you talk about passive income, one of the most common revenue streams is rental properties, right? I think because intrinsically it makes sense. I I buy a property, I put somebody in it, they pay me money every month. Great. Like the concept is very simple, right? So years ago, 15 years ago, I fell into this trap of passive income. I now think passive income is bullshit. It's not really a thing. But I fell into the same concept. I had all the spreadsheets. I wanted to get out of my W-2 job. And I said, okay, I bought my first rental property. It's making me $300 a month. And I had this goal of making $10,000 a month. It wasn't, again, Lambo or yacht money, but it was like, I could live a good life with $10,000 a month. So I worked backwards from that, $250 to $300 a month per door. So I'm, 40 odd doors, and then I'll have my income and my money, right? Fast forward 5-6 years, we did that. I remember blinking, and one day I looked at our QuickBooks and we were at like $12,000 a month net. And instead of this like feeling of euphoria or like, we climbed Everest and we did it, it kind of made me sick to my stomach. Not the money. The money was great, but just what it represented. It now represented that I have 40 doors and all these properties and all these tenants and all these toilets and all these calls and these roofs that I am now responsible for, and the water heaters and the furnaces. And, people say get a property manager, but regardless, it still weighed on me. Every 6 months, I would get a stack of checks in the mail from the county assessor saying, hey, your property taxes are due. It's not passive. There is nothing passive about it. So long story long, what we did was we shifted into private lending. We quit flipping. We sold all of our rentals. We took all that equity. We moved it exclusively into private lending. Fast forward 10, 12, 15 years, I completed a loan yesterday that paid us $18,000 after everything was all said and done. And I can tell you that I did not spend more than maybe 4 or 5 hours from start to finish, like vetting the deal, arranging all the documents, dealing with the title company, things like that. So if you're listening to this and you want passive income, I can promise you private lending is the way to do it. I'm not saying it's passive. It's not, but it is semi-passive, and it is significantly better than having tenants or toilets.
I'm laughing as you're talking because right now I have about 75 units that I own, either self or with partners, and I don't make $1 from it. It seems like I don't make $1 from these things. They make a little bit of money, but it's nothing. The cash flow is nothing in comparison to what we do lending. And the only reason I hang on so tight to that portfolio is for the kids. The kids are going to benefit from it. It's going to pay for the kids' college. It's going to pay for their weddings, their dresses, and all the stuff that's coming down the road. 4 proms, 4 weddings, hopefully, 4 colleges, hopefully, maybe. But I would not be holding those rentals if not for the future needs of my family. And that is to say that they're not cash cows. Most of my portfolio is bird. So I bird it, and I've held on tight. And last night I was up till 2 a.m. flipping through all the P&Ls and the balance sheets, just kind of getting an idea where the heck everything is, because it's hard to keep track of everything. And I realized that this lending concept is so much, it's not passive. But owning a portfolio isn't passive. I own a property management company, and it's still not passive because, like you said, there's turnovers, there's evictions, there's late notices, there's work orders, there's taxes, insurance. You got to make sure 75 properties stay insured. That's a job in itself. There's so much going on with the rental portfolio that, in my mind, that's like a 401k and IRA. Those are the long-term retirement vehicles that you set them up now when you're 41, and hopefully when you're 61, you were able to hang on long enough to give them to your kids when you're done. But this is an active side hustle where you can generate that kind of extra marginal revenue, which, if you're smart about your finances, you don't increase your lifestyle necessarily. You just have that marginal net income to your family. Then you jam it into a couple rentals, or you jam it into private loans, or you jam it down against debt. And all of a sudden you look at your balance sheet, your personal profit and loss, your personal financial statement over the course of 12 months, which you should be tracking if you're not. And then you can see a tangible difference. So, for example, one of the things that I've done for the last 10 years is I've built a personal financial statement, which is effectively like a balance sheet. It's just assets minus liabilities plus cash plus everything else. And then I set up a simple formula where I know where I was at December 31st of last year. I know where I am today, and I can see the difference. And I think that's very powerful when you start tracking your financial metrics like that, because then it becomes more visual and tangible. And all of a sudden, bringing in $10,000 in a month from loan originations from the side hustle, you can actually see your net worth, your balance sheet increase by $10,000. And then you take that $10,000, you stuff it somewhere safe, like a line item for a private money loan or a down payment on a new building or whatever. And then all of a sudden, you as the breadwinner or as the other breadwinner you start to get excited about taking more action and getting more aggressive with your side hustle because you're seeing the tangible financial benefits right in front of you and you're tracking it over time. I don't know if you do that, but that's been very helpful for me.
I do, and it gets addicting, honestly. Like, but it's like a good kind of addiction. No, this is not a gambling addiction. This is a you do. It's fun to see the numbers increase and go up over time, and it incentivizes you. This is great. I want to keep adding more to it. We have had quarters where our net worth has increased by $250,000, and you're like,
whoa,
how did that happen? I don't make $250,000 in my job. How did that happen? And pretty soon it starts to grow faster than you can contribute to it and just steamrolls and grows on its own.
I don't want to spin out into the moon here, but one of the things that I have done that's been very successful for me personally is visualization. And I talk about this sometimes with close friends and family, but I spend a lot of my energy on money. And it's not because I'm chasing money, but it's because that's my role in the family is to generate revenue for the family and take care of the family. So I think about it all day long. I don't think about other stuff like Madden football. I focus on my businesses, my revenues, my expenses all day long. But one of the things that's helped me to grow is visualizing certain financial metrics on the top line. So like you said, every month I visualize making X amount per month and then 5X that, then 10X that. The next thing you know, I'm visualizing a number that I can bring in every month that is outside the realm of my thinking even a couple of years ago. Every time I do that, it works. Now, there's a limit to that. Obviously, you can't just be a slave to earnings and money. You got to find balance. But when you're working, when it's your work time and you're trying to build revenue for your family, I focus very heavily on, first of all, 95% of my focus is on top line revenue. I don't think about expenses very much. I do, but not to the point where I look at expenses to try to cut things. I look at revenue to try to double it because doubling revenue fixes everything. But then I start looking at this business and this business and this business, this action, this opportunity, this action. And next thing you know, you start to see, if you're tracking it on a spreadsheet, you start to see that number grow and grow and grow and grow. And the way that I got ahead, I think it's similar to how you got ahead, I think, is I had a business or a job, either one, because I was a real estate salesperson for 5 years. And that's how I paid. And I started earning a lot of money because I worked really hard. And then I opened a brokerage, and after a while, that started making money. But every year, I flipped houses on the side. Every year. So I was a real estate investor. I'd buy, fix, and sell. And I'd borrow private money because I didn't have any. And I'd split the profit because I didn't have a choice. But I would do up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 a year, 12 a year, depending on the year. I didn't have a flipping operation per se, but I was always investing in at least one house at a time. Every time I made money on those houses, which in Midland, Michigan, you don't make 50, 60 grand on a deal. You make 10, 15, 20 grand if you're lucky. You don't make a fortune. But those compound. If you do 4 flips a year that make you 20 grand, that's 80,000 extra per year. And I use the word extra very specifically because if you just jam that into your bank account, it's gone. Next thing you know, you're buying a new truck and you're buying this and you're buying that and you're going on vacation. Every marginal dollar I made from flipping houses, now lending, every marginal dollar. Now, my lending money I put back into my lending company, but I'm at the point now where I've gotten to that point. But prior to that, I took all that flipping profit and I jammed it down against debt. Student loans, house, cars, credit cards, whatever debt I had. And I did something that I thought was helpful for me. Maybe it's helpful for you guys too, is I looked at every year of my life with the concept of legacy. So in the year 2015, I paid off the land contract. In 2016, I paid off the house. In 2017, I paid off X or Y or Z, whatever it was. And so when you're working as hard as we all work that's listening to this show, whether it be at a job or a business or whatever, it can be frustrated when you look back at the end of the year and you say, what did I get done? What did I accomplish? But if you could concentrate on a specific objective like that and track it and think in 12-month periods, you can do a lot. You can get 100 grand off of your balance sheet, off of your debts by flipping 4 or 5 houses or whatever, making 4 or 5 loans, whatever it is that you're doing on the side to get ahead, because you just don't get ahead. I don't care how much you pay. I don't care if you're a doctor or if you work at McDonald's, you never get ahead from your stable income because you adjust your lifestyle around your income.
Right.
So it's very hard to get ahead. Even if you're, if you're a doctor, you got a boat. If you're working at McDonald's, you got an apartment. But either way, marginally, it's hard to get ahead. That's where that side hustle, that extra income, that focus, that determination of working harder, finding a second thing to do, and then taking that revenue and jamming it away at something that creates a legacy for that year is a roadmap to get ahead from where you are now to 5 years into the future. And that's been, at least for me anyway, that's been for the last 15 years. Every single year, there's been some kind of legacy or some kind of, I can look back on the year and say, hey, good job. You got that done. You achieved that specific objective through your extra efforts. And it incentivizes you and motivates you to keep working hard for your family or whatever it is that drives you. For me, it's the family, obviously, but it motivates me to keep doing those things, keep taking those opportunities and keep growing, because I know over the course of 10, 20, 30, 40 years, I'm going to look back and I'm going to be in a good position, and they will too.
I agree. I will probably botch this, but I think it was a quote. I think it was Bill Gates who said it. I could be wrong, but he said, most people underestimate or overestimate what they can accomplish in a year and underestimate what they can accomplish in a decade. And when you don't track it, you don't notice, you don't see what you really accomplished, but jot it down, put it in your spreadsheet. And then you realize, oh, I did make huge waves this year. And you could do that through whatever it is, private lending or otherwise. You can do crazy gains and advances in your personal balance sheet and your personal net worth just by tracking and hustling. And I go back and forth with hustle culture. There's I think there is a lot of stuff that is toxic, but at the the core fundamentals are like, you got to work your ass off. It's hard, and you have to work smarter, not harder, to really make advances and accomplish these things. Going back to the concept of private lending, I've shared this story on multiple episodes on the podcast, but most of I flipped houses for 6-7 years. Similar model to Logan. We borrowed private money because we didn't have the funds to do it ourselves. We did, I think our biggest year we did 25 flips, but typically it was like maybe 10 a year, on average. We had one project in particular that just about everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. We had a painter steal some money from us. We had COVID that hit. The market dropped. Rates went up. We had this project for 14 months. It was just basically a project from hell. Anyway, long story short, we finally wrapped up this project. It sold. We basically broke even. We made about $1,200 after everything and the sleepless nights and the hours and hours and hours of anguish over this property. I remember looking at the settlement statement when it was all said and done, and our private lender made $25,000. And that was the light bulb moment for us. And I was like, oh, wow, I need to get into this. And that's not to say that there are no risks of private lending. People can default. People can walk away. If you're a shitty human and you don't, stick to your commitments and your contracts and your obligations, of course, like, you can lose money. But I think overall, for the most part, the bank always wins. As long as you're conservative and the underwriting is your risk profile is there, you're not over leveraged, all the fundamentals that you should follow when you're doing private lending, the bank always wins.
I agree. The minute I had a chance, I'll never forget it, back in 2021, to be the lender, I remember a lot of thoughts went through my mind. The first thought that went through my mind was, holy cow, I actually have enough money to do this, for the $100,000 loan or something. And for most of my career, most of my working life, I didn't have that kind of money available to just take a chance with, but I did. My second thought was, holy crap, what happens if I lose it? What?
Yes.
This was a loan to somebody who I had never met, who I still to this day have never met. She lives out in Montana, and we've been business partners for the last 4 years. But it started with a loan that I made to her as a referral from a friend who I did trust and know. But I did it. I took the leap of faith, and I put a mortgage together, a promissory note together. We did an operating agreement. We became equity partners, and we actually, it's a funny story, but we just sold this building that we bought together last week after 3 or 4 years and had an exit, which was cool. But more than that, it's the range of emotions that go into this concept of starting lending, whether it be your own capital or even more emotional is raising capital from friends and family and lending it. It's a big responsibility. If you're going to try this kind of idea, you got to make sure you know what you're doing and make sure that you can articulate the risks and the benefits and the rights and the responsibilities of everybody together. And it's something that a lot of people struggle with the concept of building, a base of capital from friends and family, because they don't want to let their friends and family down. They don't want to ever have a reputation, scar because they made a mistake or they cost somebody money. And trust me, there's nobody that's more concerned about that concept than I am. But the other side of that coin that I tell my team all the time, the LendFam guys and gals, I say, look, either you believe in what you're doing or you don't. If you don't do it. But if you do, then bring your family and your friends in, because they want to be in places where they can put their capital where they trust where it is. So if you can build a lending operation where you structure loans safely, you do it properly, you secure their capital the right way, and you vet the borrowers the right way, and you put all the chess pieces on the board in the right positions, it becomes a very, very exciting investment opportunity. And then when you compound onto that, the fact that your friends and your family want their money deployed, they want to earn returns on their money, they just want to not lose it, not have it stolen. You provide a place where they can do both of those things and achieve both of those objectives, and ideally get a nice rate of return and have you driving the boat along the way. So from that standpoint, you should be going out to your friends, and you should be going out to your family and your mom and your dad, and your aunt and your uncle, and saying, look, I have a place where this can go. I have a place where we can get, good returns. I can secure it. I can make sure it's safe, and I won't steal from you. So from that standpoint, I think you just have to have a little bit of a mind shift when you're growing this idea or this concept, and realize that you actually are serving. Your capital investors need places to put their capital. And if you can provide that to them in a safe and sustainable way, they're going to be grateful to you, and you owe it to them to offer them the opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't say it better. There was there's a video I saw by Dan Martell, if anybody follows him, but he said essentially, like, you're being selfish. Like, how dare you? If you've got this opportunity that is so lucrative and people are like licking their chops, and you don't give them the opportunity to invest in it and make money, like how selfish is that? So I in the beginning, I was afraid to reach out to family and friends and, all these different individuals to raise private capital. Now, like, they're a large portion of our overall capital base, because I've changed my mindset around that. Is like, how dare you not offer these opportunities to people, because they're, like you said, they're looking for places to stick their capital, get a safe return, especially when the market is volatile and people are just looking for something that's a little more conservative, little more risk conscious, all the above. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, a lot of the people that follow you on your social media, your Instagram and your YouTube pages, I think they're following you in part because they want to learn more about these other kind of ideas, these other investing concepts. There's a lot of, misconceptions, or I guess standard thoughts that most of the world has about how to invest. You put your money into your retirement accounts, and you buy stocks, you buy bonds and mutual funds, and that's as far as people know. A lot of people buy their house, and that becomes a major investment vehicle over time because they're building equity and appreciation. But most people don't buy rental properties. They don't get it. If you're listening right now and you've never bought an investment property, ask yourself why you haven't. And I think I know the answer. It's probably because you either don't know how to do it, or you don't have anybody to help you, or you don't want to take the risk, or whatever. But there's a lot of different reasons. But the truth of the matter is, if you bought a $200,000 investment property today and you held on to it for dear life for 20 years, you'd own it in 20 years when your kids are going to college. I don't want to say guaranteed, but it's basically guaranteed, unless the house, with a tornado or the city goes to zero, whatever. Like, it's going to be paid off in 20 years because your tenant's going to pay it off. Now, yes, you're going to have toilets, you're going to have evictions, you're going to have all the turnovers and all the hassles down the road. But there's a clear runway between now and 20 years from now. Another thing that it took me a long time to ever really focus on, for whatever reason, in my youth, my early adult years, was the future. So right now I'm 41 years old. It's very, very difficult to plan 10, 15, 20 years in the future. But I'm going to be around, hopefully. And so I need to be making decisions today that will affect me in 10 and 20 years. Most people, or at least in my experience personally, I've had a very difficult time planning that far into the future. But right now I'm building a set of duplex apartments, okay? And I bought a 6-acre parcel, and we're going to develop this parcel. We're going to put 20 duplex units in this thing. And that's going to take a lot of my bandwidth, a lot of my energy, a lot of my effort, a lot of my capital, a lot of my time. And I'm not going to get much from it because it's rentals. You don't make that much. But I can get that done and executed. I'll learn a bunch, and I'll grow, and I'll have partnerships that help me, and we'll bring in private capital that gets, benefits from that, and all the positive things about real estate development. But the key is, all 4 of my kids will be covered from that one investment if I do it right. And if I do 10 of those over the next 10 or 15 years, then their kids will be good. Now, you can argue and you can debate back and forth about how far you want your generational wealth to go. But I can tell you personally that for me, that's all I care about. Is how much I can collect in my life to give away to my kids so that they can control their destiny and their future. And then hopefully, obviously, I'll raise them in such a way where they're not, they're not squandering it or
Naughty brats. Yeah.
You should have heard my daughter the other day. She says, "Dad, I need you to buy me 3 buildings. I need a milkshake building, an ice cream building, and a hair salon." And then my stepdaughter said, "Well, I need you to buy me a zoo, and only friends and family can come to my zoo." I said, "All right, I'll buy it all, no problem." But what about Beverly?
Sounds like your daughters and my daughter would get along just great. That'd be great.
Oh yeah. My definition of success in 10, 15 years will be whether or not I'm in business with my kids, because that's
or whether or not you own a zoo.
yeah. So I got to get some capital together. I got to get some assets together so I can actually deliver. I want them to have the choice. If they want to go and be a hairstylist, that's fine. But I'm hoping instead of being a hairstylist, they'll own a hair salon, and I'll get to work at the cash register.
There you go.
Okay. Now I get to see them every day. And then we can have fun and grow up together and have a good time. So that's the goal. And we'll see how that goes. But in the meantime,
I love it.
While they're little babies, we got to enjoy them, but we got to work hard for our families so that our futures are in our control. And if you're listening to this today, if you have kids or you hope to have kids, or even if your kids are older, 14, 15, 16 years old, it's not too late, because your 15-year-old kid will be 30 in 15 years. And there's still a lot you can do together or provide for them or help them with. And even if you don't have kids, or kids aren't your thing, or you don't care about any of this, you still have a lot of runway left in your future. So make this episode the day that you made a decision to make a little change in your supplemental income streams, whether it be lending or investing or some other business side hustle. Take some action today to help yourself in the next 10 or 15 years.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Logan, you're the man. I want to be conscious of your time because we're coming up on an hour here. But parting words of wisdom, or where can people find you? What we've already mentioned the podcast, but plug your stuff. If people want to learn more about you, where can they reach out to you?
Well, if you like private money lending, or you're interested in that at all, follow the podcast, the Finley Capital Podcast. We're about to hit 100 episodes. I think I've gotten like 60 downloads total. But it's a lot of people. I have a very small following on the podcast, but the people that follow it really, really enjoy it. So if you're interested in private money lending,
I'm one of those. I can plug for it. It's awesome. He's not giving himself enough credit. The podcast kicks ass. It's very tactical. It's worth its weight in gold. So absolutely go have a listen.
I appreciate that. I love doing them. I do them twice a week now, and they're a lot of fun. I love sharing and having conversations like this, getting to know friends and family like this. But Finley Capital Podcast, finleycapital.us, lendprivate.us, and then the Powered by Private group on Facebook is a great way to network. Nothing's for sale in any of that stuff. We just want to grow our network of private money lenders, capital partners, borrowers, everybody in between, build a community so we can all get out there together and go get them.
I love it. Logan, thanks again for coming on the podcast. For everybody else that's listening, like I said, please go check out Logan's stuff. He is a treasure trove of knowledge and information, and you will not be disappointed. And until next week, thanks so much for listening.